It looks like we're all here. Good afternoon, and thank you for taking the time to join us today for our discussion panel for International Women's Day. We're so excited to learn and hear about everyone. Happy International Women's Day. I'd like to introduce to you who we are. We are Binibini New York, a Filipino American accessories brand based in New York City that focuses on function and style for the women on the go. Binibini means Miss in Tagalog, and our company is very proud to celebrate Women's Month and recognize the important contributions of women in our society. And we are so excited to share your insights through this discussion panel. I'd like to start us off by going around the room and introducing ourselves, the organizations we are part of, brands we've built, or what we're up to at the moment.
I can go first. My name is Catherine Devereaux. I'm an international student studying at FIT currently. A lot of what I want to focus on in the fashion industry is building kind of a more sustainable future in trade and development, especially when we look at manufacturing. So I'm the president of the International Trade Student Association, and I also sit on the student government at FIT. I'm really excited to see where my career goes in the future in terms of, working abroad, working internationally, or even here in America. I actually know Coco from FIT. She sits on our board as well. I'm really excited to be here, and obviously amongst a really great group of women.
Okay. Hi, I'm Sarah Munoz. I am currently a master's student at Boston University studying English literature. I'm getting my master's in it, but the goal is to eventually get a PhD. I think I might be applying to that later this year, but I focus, even though I'm studying literature, I focus on theorizing about gender-based violence and violence against women through literature and kind of highlighting that in literature and making that more important. And so that's my main focus. And I mean, I feel like women are just important, and I'm happy to be here. I think women's voices get erased a lot, even in literature. We tend to look at it as like this fun thing, and there's a lot of messaging in there. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
My name is Ali. I am the founder and owner of Binibini. I am also into sustainability, and I actually thought of making this brand because I work in the corporate world. So I am the representation of the product. This is kind of the inspiration is me as a person who travels a lot, as a person who wakes up super early, be at the airport at 2 a.m. So I was like thinking of, so how can I make this better, not just for myself, but maybe for other people as well. At the same time, I do not want to mass produce things. So I want to keep it functional and sustainability. And at the same time, I want to be helping women like me as well, not just to kind of make their life easier in the corporate world. At the same time, on the other side of the spectrum, there are women who make this product from another country. So we're trying to focus on those type of things. So we are very small brand. I still have a day job. So the focus is like really get this out there, at the same time be a responsible human being. So I am so glad that you guys are here, and I'm so excited to hear your different views on different things, and I'm excited to learn from you all.
Okay, my name is Omama. I am the co-founder and CMO of Accent. I recently just quit my day job beginning of November and made the leap to go full-time on our startup. So Accent is all about increasing representation and inclusion within corporate America. We help companies gift better with diverse employees in mind. So aside from Christmas holiday time, we're looking at what employees are actually celebrating. We started small with because I come from a Muslim background, helping people celebrate Eid and Ramadan better, but then expanding to other identities, other cultural moments, other traditions, and making everyone just feel wanted and seen in their normal everyday lives at work.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aisha Puyan. I am currently a senior technical program manager at Amazon. I've been in tech the past 6 years, but now, honestly, the more I think about my meaning in life and what I want to do I've decided I want to pursue something of my own. Something I feel very passionately about is wellness and how we can introduce alternative and complementary forms of healthcare into our modern day system. So a very interesting statistic for me in my last few years was about 40% of adults in the US actually will opt into traditional Chinese medicine and other forms of mental wellness that aren't very popularized in modern medicine. And something I'm working on is building a website to connect specifically to Eastern medicine practitioners. But thank you so much for inviting me here, Ellie. I love what you said about women on the go, being functional, and I can definitely resonate with the brand.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mashia Zaman. Thank you, Coco and Ellie, for putting this together. Really honored to be here. I am a part-time fashion content creator focusing on sustainability and mid-size fashion, modest fashion, and also culture and mental health. That's one of my biggest pillars of my platform. And from my day job, I am an analyst for NBC News and just a corporate slave slaving away. But like Aisha said, and Amama said, and Ellie, you too, the more I think about my purpose and what I want to do in life, I think I do want to move towards something that's my own. And I don't know what that is yet, but I'm on this journey and I'm excited to be here today.
Awesome. I'm so excited. We have such a diverse amount of women here with different backgrounds. Amazing projects from everyone, and congratulations. Now, I want to start the panel with a bit of a heavy subject for a lot of women. I'm pretty sure that at any point in our lives, with all of the backgrounds that we've discussed earlier, we've experienced imposter syndrome. That feeling of doubt and inadequacy in our abilities. Would you guys like to share your experience in this and some advice on how to get over it?
Whenever I think about, maybe I don't deserve to be here, I think about the things that I want to kind of uniquely brought into the world that maybe a person who went to school really is not thinking about right now, just in terms of fashion. So it helps me a lot, especially when I see people say, oh, I need that, like, why did I not think of this thing? Sometimes you need validation from outside, but at the same time, the greatest validation is like from yourself. Like, we are in here having our unique journey, so I think questioning ourselves is normal, but I think we are all unique, and there's always something unique about us that we can brought outside and bring into the table. So that helps me. It doesn't go away every day. I feel that not just in my business, but also in a tech world, where sometimes I go into dinner and everyone there is guys and I'm the only tech person. So I kind of understand, like, it's hard. It's hard. You always question yourself every single day. And I think what you need to think about is just kind of, as an individual, you have something unique in you. Whether you think you deserve to be there or not, you're there. So just do your best. So that's how I kind of still go through it every day.
I agree. I really like what you said about how there's something that you can bring to the table because nobody else is you.
Echoing what Ellie said, I actually went to a PWI, predominantly white institution in college, and not only was it a PWI, the College of Business, I was in tech too. Like, I did computer information systems as my major, and there would be times when I would be not only the only person of color in that room, but also the only woman, including my professor and my peers. And honestly, there were times when I was like, maybe I do not belong here, because I didn't know, I'm not a sports girly. Like, I don't talk sports. I had no idea what they were talking about. I couldn't relate to them half the time. Didn't understand the metaphors the professor would throw at us. And I was just, I really felt like a fish out of water. And that's when I like went to my dad and crying. I was like, maybe this is not the school for me, or maybe this is not the major for me either. Like, I don't feel like I belong. And I remember that's when he sat me down. He was like, you are there for a reason, like similar to what Ellie said. You're there for a reason. You wouldn't be there if you didn't qualify, if they didn't see that you deserved to be there. So own up to it. Take up space. Don't be afraid to take up space. You don't understand something they said, ask them, hey, I don't understand. Speak up. And I think that's when I started to kind of throw my weight around and be like, I am here and I like colors and pink. And I started wearing like all these bright colors to class. And I just started, like, if somebody made a joke, I'm like, can you explain that to me? I have literally no idea what you're talking about. And that was the first time my friends, who they then looked at me and they were like, oh, you don't understand how the Super Bowl works? Wait, let me tell you. And they explained it to me. And I realized that there are times, yes, when people would laugh at you if you voice your opinion, but there are also other times when people will turn back and they will pull you up and they will bring you in and they will include you and involve you and actually want to hear about your perspective too. So yeah, all I have to say is, yes, imposter syndrome is very real. I recently also felt it during New York Fashion Week. I did not think I belonged there. Again, similar feeling, but I was like, you know what? I'm here. I'm going to take up my space and we'll see how it goes. And yeah.
Yeah, if I can follow off of that, I agree with just everything that's been said. Ellie, you said it greatly. I think I mean, I just realized it while Coco was even asking the question that I kind of fell into it again, even when I introduced myself. I studied English in undergrad and I'm technically a writer, but I think because I didn't do well at my first magazine job, the pandemic, I was the last person hired, so I was the first person laid off. I think because I flopped in that part of my career where I was supposed to start my whole like writing part of my life, because that was my goal. I don't acknowledge it and I don't call myself a writer. And I feel like that's so annoying because I've met so many men who have not formally been published, but they're like, I'm a writer. And I'm like, okay, if you can say it, then I can definitely say it. And so I've experienced it in that sense. And I definitely still limit myself to just being a student. But I also know what it's like to be the only woman in the workplace as well. I used to work in law. That was my first thing I did after the writing job flopped. And I worked in the legal field and I also had the same experience where law is just such a male dominated space. And there's so much testosterone because it's almost like aggressive manliness, like it's an aggressive performance of manliness. And so I think the imposter syndrome was worse because when you're the only woman in a room, there's an assumption that you must be the best woman at your job to be that one woman in the room. And it was hilarious to me because I would be in there and I'd be thinking, if you guys knew how little I know and how I randomly fell into this job. And I think the confidence had to come at one point when I realized, and it was after having to go to a courtroom for a certain case I was helping with, I realized if I don't advocate for myself, no one's going to advocate for me. I can't wait for someone to validate me and say like, oh, Sarah's a good writer, because I realized no one was saying that. And I knew I was a good writer. And so it's almost like it's almost like placing ads for yourself and hoping someone sees them and then learns to associate you with that thing. And so I had to just start writing and like texting my friends and asking them to read it to boost me in the algorithm. And it just came with literally having to advocate for myself. And at first I'm not gonna lie, it felt weird at first because I wasn't used to being confident and I had to make it happen. I don't know that I can say fake it until you make it. I kind of had to force myself to do it, even though I hated doing it, until people finally started acknowledging that I was good at stuff and that I deserved to be in the spaces I was in. And so I relate a lot. And as for grad school right now, I think there's also an assumption that I'm supposed to know a bunch of things. In literature, there's this assumption that you've read everything. And so I have so many people every day in class being like, oh, you read this book and the book after and the book after. And I'm like, I don't even know who that author is. And so I've learned to also know my like limits, and that's okay. Like it's okay to not know something, and it's okay to ask, and it's okay to, yeah, literally what has been already said. It's okay to take up space. And if you are taking up space, you know, the one thing you can always do is get better and acquire more knowledge. And so that's how I see it, is like, yeah, I might be taking up this space. I might not be the smartest person here, but I'm trying to be smarter, and that's very important. So yeah.
And I think there's not any point in your life where you're also done from learning. Like no matter what age you are, no matter if you're like 40, 80, 20, you're constantly learning as long as you're alive. So I really like that. Thank you for sharing.
That's very, very true that you will never stop learning. And that's something that I had to really remind myself as well. So I had been doing some form of accent. We've kind of pivoted and evolved a while, but I graduated in 2020. And after I graduated, I was also doing that on the side, but I was also starting my very first like corporate like marketing job, like as a full-time employee. And I was always like, I'm not good enough to go full-time on this startup idea just yet. Like I need to learn, I need to experience the field, I need to like become an expert, right? And so I was at my job for 2.5 years. And then it got to the point where it's like, okay, like I really do want to spend all of my time doing this really amazing idea. Like I see a lot of benefit in it. I'm really, really passionate about it. But that imposter syndrome was holding me back for a while because it's like, am I good enough to like just commit to this? Like, besides financial stability, right? Like I just felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt like my whole team was going to rely on me to be like the CMO, the expert in marketing, but like I've only been working for like 2 years. Like, do I know enough? Like, am I qualified enough to just like tell you what to do about marketing, you know? And something that I just had to like my team sat me down and like really told me it's like you do so much more than just like your job title. Like you've learned UX and UI like on your own. You taught yourself the entire Adobe Creative Suite. So like you are good at graphic design. Like I learned how to code to like help our platform and our website alongside our tech team too. Like it was a lot of like skills that you just picked up along the way. I watched YouTube videos, I went on LinkedIn learning courses, and like you are always learning, always growing, and you will never like reach some sort of status where you're like, okay, like I think I know enough to like call myself an expert. Like everyone is just kind of learning as they go. And that's something that I had to like really like account for. It's like, okay, like I'm just going to do it. And I'm going to go full time. I'm going to commit to this because no one is more passionate about this company than the people that founded this company. And you just had to like tell yourself, like, I am the only person holding myself back. And so I had to make the leap and just tell myself that, okay, if I don't know something, I'll learn. I'll ask questions and I'll continue learning.
I wanted to add something really quickly to what Umama said, because so much about my journey with imposter syndrome, I feel like comes from understanding how to master something in order to become confident. And it was definitely interesting because my first level of insight came from a white male coworker, and I realized how imposter syndrome is so gender agnostic. You could be the most privileged person in the room and still have insecurities. And advice that I got from him was, even if it's a really niche topic, something no one else really cares about, but you feel passionate towards, and you develop some level of expertise in that domain, people will come to you with questions. And those baby steps help you kind of make that decision, make those like, hey, no, I can do something on my own. I can become an expert in something and then scale in other parts of your life. So I definitely resonate with what Mama said, and I feel like developing some level of expertise helps with imposter syndrome.
For me, imposter syndrome really just comes down to the fact that I'm afraid of things or afraid of being somewhere that you're not supposed to be. I grew up in a really small Arctic community, isolated, where the only way in is by plane. There's about 10,000 people in my entire community growing up. And the idea of moving to New York City was something that wasn't even fathomable in my mind growing up. And I was always just terrified of taking a leap like that. And it wasn't until I think I started to realize that in order to gain those confidence, you really need to take yourself out of your own boundaries, that you kind of develop those skills along the way. And I mean, imposter syndrome, yes, like you can be afraid of things, but at the same time, overcoming that is going to be so much more rewarding than not taking that leap of faith.
Yeah, I love that, Catherine. I think it's a more, okay, we feel this, but at the same time, what can we do about it? It's like the practical things that we can do to overcome it. So I really, really love that.
Absolutely. I'd like to add a few more things if time permits.
course.
Recently, I decided, by recent, I mean about a year ago, that I wanted to pivot out of tech jobs and into something different. But again, I honestly had really limited amount of exposure to any other fields or career spaces. So when I was researching, I was very scared to apply to jobs that I thought that I could do well in, but I didn't have all the checkpoints. Like I didn't meet all the criteria. That's when I think on TikTok, I saw somebody who was saying that, you know what, I started living in delusion and I act like a privileged white man. And I just go into spaces and I tell people that, you know, I'm capable of this, just like Sarah, you were saying. They just go into spaces and they're like, yeah, you know, I can do this. And they may not check all the points, but they walk in with confidence and they expect people to believe them when they say that they know things. And then I did some research and I found a statistic that men usually always apply to jobs and ask to be in spaces where they know that they're not always qualified for, but women don't. They hold themselves back all the time. They're like, let me better myself and then I'll apply. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to better myself in the process. I'm going to work along the way to better myself, but I will still apply. So I started becoming 100% delusional and I applied for this job at NBC News that I know I did not qualify for. I know nothing about ad sales, but I applied and I told them during the interview, I was like, I know nothing about ad sales, but I'm a great learner and I want to learn and I want to be here. Can you let me in, please? And they did. And I was honestly shocked because everybody else in that room, they were so smart. And I was like, I do not belong here. I don't. My manager was like, girl, you asked for this. You wanted to be here. Why are you holding yourself back? Like Mama said, I was the only person holding myself back. My fear was. And I forgot that I promised myself that along the way, I'm going to teach myself and I'm going to learn. So I was like, you know what? You said that you were going to learn. So learn now. You have the opportunity. Take advantage of opportunities that come your way. But I feel like as women, sometimes we don't. We let things pass us by because we oftentimes are told that we need to be perfect in order to do things. I just think we don't have to be perfect. We can just roll with it.
I love when you said like you're the only one holding yourself, because to be honest, like the limit, it's us who's putting the limitations within ourselves. It's not really the world. So like if you think that you can do it, you start doing it, and then you'll be surprised of what you can accomplish. So I agree.
Absolutely. Be delusional, everyone.
Yeah.
Since we all seem to have similar experiences of having self-doubt and lack of confidence sometimes, as we've discussed, how do you think we can best use our voices to support and advocate for other women in the spaces we occupy, since we know now that we all feel the same?
I mean,
Oh,
I have some experience in this. My legal field experience was always either supporting women or working for women. And so when I was in New York, I worked at a nonprofit called Her Justice, where we gave free legal services to like women of color, marginalized women, women who couldn't speak English. And there I led like a very client forward role. I did translation work. I helped directly with clients because my first language is Spanish. I'm Latina, and so a lot of our clients were Latina. So it was really funny. A lot of like how clients received like our services improved and their thoughts of us improved just because I was there, because someone they were talking to had a native accent. It wasn't someone who had learned the language. They could hear that like I was speaking to them and they knew like they could place me, like they knew someone like me. And that was kind of when I realized that so for so many, especially women of color and like immigrant women, a lot of our advocacy happens when we're just in a space. Like us just being somewhere already means a lot. Like even here in grad school, I'm the only Latina. There's not even like a Latino in my program. It's just me. It's just me. And even just being here means a lot. I realized like how underrepresented we are after undergrad. Like there's like none of us who have masters. There's even less of us who have PhDs. And so that kind of realizing how those what seems like small steps can mean a lot to a lot of people, that's really important. And something I've tried to do is every time I'm in a new space that I know is underrepresented, I just go out of my way to find other women like me and almost form like a little coalition. So like I found the Latino community at my university and I was like, take me in, like, what are we doing? Where are we going? I recently actually taught at Harvard last semester. I taught a class, like a linguistics class, and it was really interesting. There was a list of like, I hate that this even happened, but there was like a list of like students who were being problematic. I don't even like that that word was used with a student's name. But when I looked at the list, because I'm nosy, all of the last names were last names that sounded like mine. Like my last name is Munoz, but the last names on this list were Gomez, Lopez, Garcia. And I was like, this feels targeted. And so I may or may not have just reached out to them like an annoying auntie that they didn't ask for. And I was like, so what's going on? Like, do you need help? And just even just being a home for them, I like once I investigated further, I realized that there was just no support for students of color, minority students. And they also had never seen someone like me in a teaching position there. And so that was when I was like, okay, there is some way I can advocate. And so I went out of my way and like tutored them. Like I went out of my way and boosted their grades. Like advocacy comes in like different shapes and forms. And I think when opportunities present themselves to you where you can elevate a voice or amplify other voices, which is what I try to do because I am like the palest person in my community, I use that. Like I know I can say things on behalf of my community because I've experienced the same things, but I have a lot of privilege in that I will never face repercussions for voicing my opinions on stuff. Whereas like an Afro-Latina definitely can't like be as like loud as I am and as obnoxious as I am in a lot of spaces. And so for me, like my whiteness is something that I have to use. Like it's a duty to use it. And so it's in other jobs, it means like if I find a resume for like a woman of color and I know who's like doing hiring, I'm going to print out 10 copies of the same resume and put them in the same pile. So they're going to keep running into hers on purpose, which I have done before. It means literally just like figuring out in my experience, because my thing is like gender-based violence, I always think like, okay, who is the most exposed to violence and how do we get them like a microphone? Like, how do we get them to be heard? Because the problem isn't the person who's the most privileged at the top. The problem is the person who's experiencing like the most violence. And so whatever I can do to identify first who it is, who's suffering the most, then my plan is just like, okay, how do I like obnoxiously use my privilege to get them like in the spotlight? How do I like push them and get everyone's attention off of me and then on them? And so that's kind of how I've used advocacy, especially being like a white Latina, which is a very like, it's a political identity to have.
Yeah. No, that's really powerful. I love what you said about amplifying voices and advocating for others. That's something like we at Accent are also trying to do. Like one of our core purposes is connecting small minority-owned businesses to these large corporate orders. Like whenever we do have a corporate client, like we've worked with Google, Zoom, Duolingo, and they order in bulk, right? Like they want gifts for all of their employees or all of their teams. And sometimes we have like smaller gifts that are only like 10-person teams. Sometimes we get orders that are like 500 orders, right? But whenever we curate a gift for a certain holiday or tradition, we make sure that we are supporting the community. So if it is Hispanic Heritage Month, every single gift product that goes in that box is created by a Hispanic-owned small business. And we are a women-owned or women-founded team. And so we just kind of naturally found women-owned brands like that. So almost all of our vendors are women-owned brands. And that's something that we just really, really like keep near and dear our heart. Is like, your feminism is nothing without intersectionality too. And so we make sure that we're supporting these women of color and really amplifying their voices. A lot of people started their brands during the pandemic. They had more time. and they were trying to support themselves for whatever reason that was. And so we wanted to make sure that we are connecting them to the right avenues and helping them elevate their own brands. Like we are, in a way, a marketing tool for them. And so that's something that we always wanted to give back of like, we have this larger mission, are we going to like help our community elevate themselves and also reach to the levels that they want to as well.
Yeah, I love that. I can resonate because obviously, when you're creating a business, it's not just about profit. It's not just about, oh, I want this, I love this, I need to put this out. You do have normally with business owners, you think about, okay, your 10-year, dream, what's gonna happen to this business in 10 years, in 5 years. And with us, I know we're still very, very small. Binibini is very small, but most of the people, if not all of the people that we're working with, are female artisans. So basically, these are the people who kind of stay-at-home people, and with someone kind of taught them how to weave stuff, those type of things. So we've kind of find these people to work with. It's about, okay, maybe I have never met these people, I've never been to wherever they're from, but we kind of research their life and how can we empower them, what type of livelihood maybe we can give them, like impacting them in a little way, especially during the pandemic when really there's nothing, there are no industry that will take them on. So to me, I do have a lot of respect for businesses, especially small businesses who's not just in this business for profit, but they're also impacting the other people's lives in in a good way. So yeah, I can resonate with what you said.
It's really interesting to see the different types of advocacy and activism you can do in your daily life. I think when I first graduated from my undergrad, I had this fire in me where I was like, my noble goal in life was to empower women. And that was just all I wanted to do. I think there's a part of that fire that gets diminished almost as time passes, which is really unfortunate. And I actually had someone tell me that as I was graduating, and I was really stubborn. And I was like, no, I'm not going to let that happen. And during my first year of corporate life, I actually ended up enrolling with the United States of Women, which is a gender equity program. They do like advocacy meetings all throughout the country, and they have one big conference at the end of the year. And that was a more formal approach to women empowerment for me. I learned a lot about networking and working with local leaders. But truth be told, the longer I've spent in my corporate life and dealing with other aspects of my life, that fire did kind of get subdued. But I've found exactly what Sarah, Mama, and Ellie talked about, ways to empower women in my day-to-day. Like I co-founded the Woman at Amazon chapter in Chicago when I was working there. I helped mentor and sponsor women in getting jobs, looking at resumes. And even like during the pandemic, helping woman-owned businesses in my neighborhood set up like pro bono advertising campaigns because I had an ad sales background. So I think there are ways where we can find day-to-day activities and help support women. And especially like the older that we get, I feel like a lot of people feel like, oh, we don't have the luxury of doing things like this because we have to worry about paying bills. But there are more organic ways of doing that, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be loud,
Right.
It doesn't have to be like, obviously, like you think about, maybe I need to be rich to do this. Maybe I have all the unlimited resources to do this. But actually, no, like find your passion and then do the best that you can to incorporate those advocacies that are important to you.
Absolutely.
Speaking of passion, I think before I moved to New York and decided to get into the fashion industry, I studied and worked in policy in Canada. And when you look at foreign policy, there's so many different compliance rules across the board. And I mean, being in the fashion industry, you kind of take a look at manufacturing, and over 80% of the garment workforce overseas is women. And that's a huge number. And statistically, I mean, it checks out when you think that women in the workforce, especially in the garment industry, are not treated exactly how they should be. And I think for me moving forward in my career, it's not just about, you know, how garments get from one place to another. It really comes down to the people and the foundation of the compliance within the manufacturing industry. And I think Coco can relate to this a lot because we are in the international trade program. A lot of it really does come down to how we treat our workers. Like the clothing that you're wearing on your back, we know nothing about the women or men that made it. And like I said, 80% of the garment industry is made up of women. And that's something that I think I want to foresee being better in the future, just how we treat these women, how we treat these women and men, especially overseas, and kind of the standards we have in place for that.
Yeah, I think it's part of the responsibility. Like me, obviously our total is made in the USA, but I visited, it's not a factory. They're a small group of well, they're a small company and most of their
Or a
work,
workshop.
yeah, they're a workshop. So it's not like, okay, I want this and I don't care where you're making this. So we visited them, we kind of saw what they're doing. Similar to the other bags that we have, I kind of like, okay, send me who are these women, what's their background. So even though you don't think you're impacting them in a big way, it's your responsibility to like, maybe I'm not ordering millions from you, but I'm still giving you business. So it's important for me that my business is helping people who really needs help and not, I don't want my business to be part of like exploitation. So yeah, I totally agree.
I think standards in the industry is something that needs to change in the coming years. We've seen major incidents that have happened over the years in countries like Bangladesh, India, where a lot of our clothes are manufactured. And yes, there are compliance and responsibility put in place, but still there is a lot of work to be done in that industry. I totally respect that you guys know who is making your bags for you and kind of where it's coming from, because I do think that is like it's an important part of the story as well.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, to us, it's like I want to see this like a norm, not the exemption. Like obviously, I can't compete with big brands, but big brands are, no matter how they they market, it's still who's making those things. So to us, it's maybe a far off future. I don't know if it's gonna happen in 10 years, but my dream is to have like business like us as a norm where where things are coming from, be more responsible instead of like we're the exception. Right now, it's more. I think whatever it is that I'm doing, I think the people who are driving this are mostly small businesses. You don't see big businesses driving this. Obviously, they're gonna say this is what we're doing, but we'll never know. We're not sure. I mean, I don't have a factory, and obviously, when you compete with big businesses, it's hard for them to kind of. It will cost a lot of money to change, but hopefully it will happen.
Yeah, I agree. And again, it comes back to owning up to your own story and your brand identity. We're not doing the same as what the big brands are doing, but then again, we're not playing the same game as them. So I really respect small brands and small businesses. And thank you guys for sharing that. How about opportunities? Can you guys share any type of opportunities that you've taken up advantage of to improve your situation in the workplace, academics, or business world? Did you network with anyone specific? How you went about it? Used a resource you want to share?
When I went into legal work, I specifically sought out only working with women of color and like women who are like minority women, that just like I knew it would relate more to me, and it made more sense, because even though I know how I present, that my community is predominantly brown and black, so that's what I grew up around. And so I thought, if I used to think I wanted to work in law, hence that whole like legal interlude in my like random career history, because I know it sounds kind of random to throw that out there. And so I knew if that's the kind of client I want to serve, if that's the community I want to serve, I can't learn from like a white corporate attorney who works in like, I don't know, like contracts. Like it didn't make sense. And so I always sought out to work with women of color. And that was kind of the best learning situation I've ever been in, like learning opportunity, even though it was a job. I still carry the majority of what I learned on those jobs with me, even though I'm in academia now. I think I think working in communities of color, there's so many women who are forced to be a part of their community. Like you can't, how do I explain this? I think depending on like your race and your gender, if you're a woman of color, you can't separate those two. You can't identify as just one. You're not, that's just not a privilege that you have. Even like based on how I present, people always associate me with my last name because it gives away where I'm from. And so what I realized is that there's a power in that. And after working with those women, it kind of made me realize how little I was utilizing my own community and helping my own community. I think I saw myself too much. I was too focused on learning and getting ahead by myself. And then because I thought my logic was, let me get my education done and then I can turn around and help my community after. And working for those women, I realized, no, you should be helping your community every step of the way. That makes more sense because then you're elevating more people with you every step of the way. And because when you, I guess when you get, like, let's say I had a PhD already, I would turn around and now help them. So there would be this huge gap between me and the rest of my community that would be much harder to like bridge. Whereas where I am now in academia, every step of the way, I try to find ways to help other women like be with me, or like there's that whole idea of like opening the door for other women. And the way I see it is I'm like, well, what if I just leave a doorstop under it and so I can continue, but the door's open, like I've already left it open, if that makes sense. And so the only reason I think that way is because I worked with Black women. It's because they're the sisterhood I've seen Black women having for each other is kind of the most incredible thing I've ever seen. And I think in my community sometimes because of like colorism, just politics, there's a lot of division in like other minority groups, specifically mine. I can definitely speak to that. And working for Black women is the way I like learned how to properly be a member of my community, but also like properly love my community. And I think if you don't love your community, you can't, your activism isn't going to be as good.
Yeah, I think it's like, again, it goes back to what are you doing right now? What are the avenues that you can help? You know, it doesn't have to be super huge, but then as you follow, you know, your journey, as you go to this journey, and you have that passion, you have that path that you're taking, you know, those opportunities will present themselves to you. It's just a matter of you taking, you know, which one. You kind of picking which one to follow. With me, I moved here a few years ago. I am obviously a Filipino descent. Unlike Coco, I still have my accent. So I do have a lot of going into working in the corporate America, even though I've been working in the corporate America for a long time. It's my first time to be working in this country. So I'm like, I think about my accent. I did not realize, well, accent is culture, you know. So I'm like, okay, I just have to tell myself that. So going into a room where I have to present that my job is to, I'm a solutions consultant. That's my day job. So I talk a lot. I have to talk a lot, even though I don't want to. And same with Binibini. I have to talk to people. I have to tell them my ideas. So I am an introvert. So it's like, oh my God, I don't want to be in the center of attraction, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to be this. I kind of want to elevate other people and not me. But at the same time, I have to take the opportunity that is presented in front of me to be a leader at times, because they said that, you know, the best leaders are actually the people who do not want to be a leader, but then it's like, you know, if you don't stand there, no one's gonna do it. So to me, it's a struggle because it's like I'm gonna put in the introvert thing. Sometimes I'm super shy, those type of things. But at the same time, I have to take those opportunities that is in front of me because there's a reason why it's there. So maybe I can do something good if I just kind of forget about myself and how I feel at this moment and just take a leap. Like when Coco told me that I have to participate in this podcast, I was like, oh no, I don't want to do that. Every time I go into demo, like show people like our product and convince someone like, oh, we do have a good thing in my day job, I'm like, I just want this to be over. So every day of my life, you know, those are the challenges, and I see them as opportunity, and I see them as like, okay, these are the opportunities that I'm taking advantage of, no matter how I feel, you know, when I was doing it. So yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Masha.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying that I absolutely love what Ellie and Sarah both said. Most opportunities in my life actually has come from women, mostly women of color, Muslim women, Latino women pulling me up and speaking my name in spaces where I wasn't present. And I tried to do that as well. So my going back to the previous question, also Coco, like touching a bit on that, my advocacy is aggressively saying people's names in rooms where they're not present. I meet people and I remember them and I'm like, oh, they liked this. And then I would meet somebody else. I'm like, you know what? I know this woman. I don't know them very well, but I know that they do XYZ and I think they will be great at it. And I don't even know if sometimes it goes back to them or they've heard, but I've seen it through that people that I want in certain spaces or I've mentioned, they get those opportunities and it makes me so happy because I'm like, I'm an aggressive person and I'm like, please, I want all of these beautiful, amazing, stunning, intelligent women I know. I want all of them to succeed. And that's how I advocate. Like it's super tiny, but I learned that through the women in my life who sometimes they didn't even know me very well, but they knew that maybe I had potential, but they uplifted me. They said my name in spaces where I wasn't present and I got opportunities based on that. And there would be also times when I would doubt myself and I'm like, where did this opportunity come from? Like I'm not meant for this. But you know, it's like a cycle. What is it called? Like you know those Starbucks challenges that were happening when you'd like go through the Starbucks line and somebody would be like, oh, somebody paid it for you, like pay it forward. Kind of like that, but with people and opportunities. And that's honestly I've learned that if an opportunity comes my way, no matter how small or big, take it. Take a leap of faith, take it, and then use that platform as a space to advocate for other women and other people. Like you said, open the door, leave it open, and put a doorstop in it. Like break the door. There's no door. It's open.
Not break the glass ceiling, break the door. I love that.
Start breaking doors.
Yeah, we start breaking doors now. We're in construction. Let's go.
No, and like I've seen Mashiat, your advocacy in person. Like I'm literally on this panel because you spoke my name in a room I wasn't in. So I do appreciate that. And I've seen that advocacy in real life. But just adding on as well, like I think that's so powerful how everyone's kind of mentioned leaning into your community, speaking to other women of color, because I think that's been my experience as well. Like we are right now pitching to get seed funding. And the startup world is not only just so male dominated, it is so white male dominated. And like looking at the stats will just really make you so sad. But like only like less than 3% of women ever get funding for startups. And then you take that 3% and then you make it intersectional, like women of color, how many startups ever make it? How can they get funding? And it was just really disheartening in the beginning, I think, to really like look at those numbers and be like, how can I be like 0.5%? You know, like how can I ever like make it that far? And so it was like, okay, like let me talk to other startup founders, but I can't talk to someone who doesn't have the same experience that I do, that didn't have the same struggles as I do, that doesn't look like me. And it's limited. There's not a lot of Pakistani women like founders or even like other women of color founders, but there is a community for the people that do exist. There's such a tight-knit community and they're like location based too. And something that's really helped me is just finding those communities where they're at. Like I've joined like email listservs for this one woman. Her name is Zainab, and she hosts founder like events every day in New York. And I love like seeing how she's kind of bringing people together. Like if you're a woman founder, like come out to X, Y, and Z. Like she does that one thing where it's like pitch and walk or pitch and run, whatever you're comfortable with. And you just walk with a group of women every morning, get your exercise in and pitch your company, or you can run if you're into that too. I don't like running. But it's just so powerful. And I found it and I was like, I have been looking for this for so long, right? And so it was a very easy way to just network with people that look like you, that are facing the same struggles, and just learning from each other's like mistakes, and kind of like that doorstop mentality too. It's like, I learned this in my process and I want to pay it forward. There's a lot of like Twitter communities that exist that way, and I've made a lot of like online startup founder friends as well just through there. So that's kind of been like my resource, and I've just been going out of my way to find those communities where they already exist.
Yeah, I wanted to add, I'm very passionate about the startup space and representation of women in the startup space. So everything you said, Amama, I would love to learn more about this pitch and run slash block thing. It sounds great. Um, and then also back to what Mashiat was saying around advocacy, there's a really clear delineation between mentorship and sponsorship. And it's so important not just to have mentors in your industry, whether that's male, female, someone that looks like you, someone who doesn't look like you. Maybe you are actually the first person that you know of in this community. But also, I love the concept of speaking someone's name when they're not in the room. And as much as we're doing that, it's so important to find people who would sponsor us when we're not in the room, just like Mashiat's. I think you said what many women have done it for you so far, and that's how you found yourself in today's role. And I truly don't think I would have been where I was either without sponsorship. The best advice I've gotten was find someone who is where you want to be in 10 years. And whether it's a cold email, a coffee, or even like finding similar interests, maybe they volunteer somewhere and you want to go volunteer there, but build an organic relationship with someone who's where you want to be in 10 years and have them advocate for you. And it truly has changed my life in so many ways, whether that's professionally or personally. And I would love to see other women take advantage of that as well.
Yeah, I really love the sharing of information. And that's why I thought that would be a really interesting question to ask, not just for us in here, but also for the people who are watching, just to let them in on some of the information that we know. What are your hopes for the future generation of women leaders, creatives, parents, politicians, scientists, and others? I know that's so broad, but hopefully we feel hopeful after this talk.
I think
Rain-
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, you can go ahead. I was just saying rainbows and unicorns and everyone's.
Right. Yeah, those two.
Yeah. To me, I think, you know, you guys are younger than me, obviously. It's so refreshing to see the sharing of information, and you know, this is what I am hoping for going forward. Like, the success of one means the success of many, and it's not like just me on my own. I can take a lot of people with me to that door or whatever, wherever I'm going, like opening that door, those type of things, instead of like gatekeeping and then like I'm in here and then you can't come in anymore, those type of things. So my hope is to really have that community that, you know, that can help people like us realize that, you know, even though you're thinking that you maybe don't deserve it or your dreams are not for you, I want those to be like, you know, a thing of the past. Like, you know, no, it's easy. This is how you're gonna do it. So that's my hope, you know, for women like us to find our kind of community sisterhood. That's what I want to see. It's gonna help us, I think, realize a lot of dreams, and you know, not just for ourselves, but you know, help other people realize their dreams as well. So that's what kind of what I want to see going forward, and I'm happy. I think, you know, you guys, you guys are so much of inspiration to me right now. I know, like, you're building this kind of thing in your life where you advocate in any way that you can. So it's such a powerful inspiration. I think we have hope. So
I absolutely love that, Ellie. As much as I have had people in my life who has, you know, advocated for me, uplifted me, and supported me, and still continue to do so, but I've also felt the biggest blockade and the biggest push, like resistant, kind of like, oh, you are not invited in this space, from also women, unfortunately, where they would want to gatekeep and they wouldn't want to, let you in on their secrets so that, you can also, crack the code. And I've found that especially in the content creation community, in fashion community, and to an extent also in my South Asian community, where there would be women who are massively successful, but they would not want to always share their success with you. They wouldn't want you to take a seat at the table. So I would want a future where that's not the case, where us women, not only women of color, women in general, we aren't afraid to, share our success. We're not afraid to, we're not scared to think that, if we share a little piece of this cheese with everybody else, that our cheese is going to end, or we're not going to have anything left. Because at the end of the day, we will. The more we share, the more I think we get back in return, because like I said, the wheel keeps moving. People keep paying for it. So in the grand scheme of things, if you share, I think you will also get other people sharing with you. So I think it'll be a bit abundant of success then, if we just keep giving and keep involving people who don't have the opportunities. So that's my hope. I hope rainbows and unicorns, but also this.
Yeah,
One of the greatest parts.
That's why it's so inspiring, Mashiat, because just what you said, I experienced those things too as well. But seeing this group of people right now and helping each other, I wish this is more of like a common thing.
I think one of the greatest parts about this generation in general is our access to content. Whether it's TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, there's just such a massive information out there. And I think we're also very lucky because we have an incredibly beautifully creative community of women on all these platforms. And it kind of inspires us on our own to do things that wouldn't necessarily be, first nature to us. And I mean, I talk to my parents about this a lot, my grandparents, and it's kind of a concept that they can't wrap their heads around. And I think looking forward to future generations, this idea of sharing so much information is just going to be like first nature to them. It's going to be something that's going to help progress them forward in the future. And that makes me really excited for what's coming for women, what's on the horizon, and how we can contribute to that.
Usually these talks kind of drain you and it ends in a dark note, but we want hope, and we want to send the message out there that things are changing. And I think that wraps up our panel discussion for today. Thank you guys so much again for joining us. This discussion will be uploaded on Binibini New York's IGTV and YouTube channel on March 8th, Women's Day. I know we still have a lot to say, and hopefully next time we can do this again, even if it's not International Women's Day. We love having these conversations. And thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Positively energized. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you to our wonderful moderator, Coco, as well.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for
Speaking
having
on
us.
imposter syndrome, this is the first time I've ever done this, and it was kind of terrifying because I've never done this before. I've never done a hosting gig before, but thank you guys so much.
Coco, my love, so great. You were so great. Loved it.
Thank you. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
You're also the advertisement for Binibini in the background there. I was going to say, we have a beautiful
I know.
model.
I was trying not to look at it. Thank you for pointing it out.
I love that you did that. That's amazing. Thank you guys for having us. It was so great. I feel amazing. It's going to be a great Monday.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I feel like everyone else seems to be a little bit in the business space, so I was like, all right, I'll try to like stretch education as hard as I can. But no, I'm really happy I was included. I learned a lot here today.
We try to get people from all spaces, because that's what we want to do, is to represent people in all spaces: academic, business, corporate world, social media. all spaces. So thank you guys, and
Everyone smile.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a photo.
perfect.
Yay, I got it.
Thank you guys.